Hello, everybody in YouTube land and in Twitch land. This is the first video, list video being recorded live. I'm joined today by Beard. Beard, how's it going?
It's going just fine, thanks.
That's great. If you don't know who Beard is a very prolific Arkham Horror custom content designer who is responsible for such things as Alice in Wonderland, Cyclopean Foundations, the Arkham Incidents, the Arkham Irregulars, which we just had Rodrigo Alvarez from on the channel, and a lot more. Like, there is a lot of stuff that you've designed. You also have your your yearly Halloween one-shots that are also there, which you just released a new one, like, just recently, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera this year.
And you play with Concealed in that one from Scarlet Keys, right?
Yep. I'll be exploring some stuff that I don't think the official campaign did, and they really should have. But
nice. Hell yeah.
I'll let you see that.
Yes, that should be out. They'll be out on the channel as well in the future. But today I'm very excited because I asked if Beard wanted to do a video where he gets to share and I get a gush about his 5 favorite designs. So it says top 5 here just because it works better for a list video. But these are basically like the designs that Beard is the most proud of, at least off the top of his head in like the last when I told him to think about it over the last few days. So we're just going to talk about each one, and then you can kind of just say why you like it. We'll say what the mechanic is. We're going to try to be as spoiler light as possible. Like, there are going to be some spoilers, and there's going to be some encounter cards that come in here. But we're going to try to do as little as we can. I'm also tagging the video, so you can jump ahead if you do not want to like see something that might spoil things for you. But other than that, we're going to dive in with number 1, which is the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. All right, Beard, tell me all about this Cheshire Cat.
So he follows you for pretty much the whole campaign, and the gist of it is he bounces around between different investigators and keeps flipping between his nice side and his not so nice side. His nice side is when you're gonna fail by exactly 1, he makes you succeed, and then he flips. And his not so nice side is when you're gonna succeed by exactly 1, you fail instead, and then he flips. And there's cards in the encounter deck that make him go to different investigators or just make him flip at random, so you're not really sure how he's going to behave at any given moment.
One thing I really like about the Cheshire Cat is it really has that sort of make you go madness vibe to it, which is this is gonna sound like I don't like it, but this is an actual compliment. How frustrating this cat can be, where suddenly he's the grinning guide and he's on your side and he's doing all he can to help you and do things, but then suddenly he flips over and he starts making fun of you. He really is actually kind of annoying, but also something can be very beneficial. And then at certain points, you can take advantage of it, or fail and it flips back, and the game will just throw you for a loop as well. And then suddenly, who you were banking on to maybe do something is now suddenly against you.
And there is a little bit of strategy too, because you have to decide do we want to flip him to his bad side as soon as possible, just in case the encounter deck flips him back to his good side.
Yep. No, definitely.
There's lots of tiny little decision points that don't make a huge impact because it's not forcing you to fail if you're up by a ton, which isn't too hard to do.
Yep.
But
and then also determining who gets control of them, and these cards are there in every scenario, right?
Yep, every scenario, and they all surge, so they don't mess with the encounter deck balance at all.
Yep. Yeah, because they're just kind of just him. Notably, the nonsensical advice, the wheel, can be both frustrating but also super helpful, which works really well with fitting with the flavor of the Cheshire Cat. Yeah. I think overall
he's just like the quintessential Wonderland experience is just trying not to go crazy just because these people and animals don't behave like sensible people.
I'm going to ask a question. You might not remember the answer. You might know the answer. Back in the ages ago when you designed the Cheshire Cat and Alice in Wonderland, what made you kind of like think about like the flipping and being like, I understand that probably is inspired a lot by, you know, like the character itself, but was there a reason beyond just like him transporting and like changing his like demeanor and all that, or was there something more to it?
I think it was mostly just for flavor because the cat just vanishes and does what he pleases, and this was the first idea I came across to kind of get that across in gameplay. And I think my favorite touch is just for the ally trait, there's a question mark after it.
Yes, that is. I like small stuff like that. That's really nice. All right, let's hop on to our next one here, which is the non-Euclidean keyword from Cyclopean Foundations. So what is the non-Euclidean keyword, Beard?
Simply, it is when you move from a location, you have to resolve all non-Euclidean things that are on that location. And some of them can be helpful, some of them can be necessary, and some of them can be very, very harmful.
I think these are three great examples that you have here to represent the non-Euclidean keyword. Main deck is part of the first scenario, and it's kind of your first big showcase of this keyword in the scenario. Because the scenario, it's pretty Euclidean until suddenly it becomes non-Euclidean, but it's immediately a head scratcher where you're like, oh, I have to solve this mini puzzle. And I remember when I was first playing Cyclopean Foundations in my blind play, which is on the channel, just that whole like revelation of, oh, I see what you're trying to get me to do. Like you're trying to like, I have to think about this a little bit. And notably, it also has victory. So I need to like, how can I puzzle that out? Because if I leave, I have to place a clue token on it. And it becomes like, what the heck is going on here?
Exactly. It's something that's, I wouldn't say completely foreign, but it's just a new way to think about the map and moving.
Yeah. And then we also see that with like warped stonework on the other side here, which is a card that's kind of interesting. So you can either take a damage or a horror or move directly to a location that is not connected to the attached location, which kind of gives like that in the art, like that weird staircase that suddenly takes you somewhere else. But it's an encounter card that I really enjoy that is actually kind of positive until it's super negative, and then you're like, we have to spend the action to get rid of this. And I really like this one because it does hit in different levels depending on the scenario that you're playing.
Exactly, and that was actually quite tricky in some scenarios to like figure out the map, knowing that this was going to be the encounter deck and making sure that you couldn't basically soft lock yourself.
Yes, yep. Yeah, no, there's a lot of like you told me once that like with Luke, you just kind of put your hands up and it's like, this guy's probably going to break the scenario. But like from coming in like this, like movement is key, like movement and like clue counts, right? Those are the two things that can like break things. So it's good to like, to be aware of that if you are designing your own thing and it's stuff like this.
Yeah, but I'm really happy with non-Euclidean specifically, not just because of all that, but because it's such a simple mechanic. You can do a lot with it. It's not like locked into just doing one single thing over the course of the campaign. It can affect a lot of different things. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a really good thing to be aware of when you are designing stuff. And you see it a lot with Beard's things. And you're going to see it especially when we get to the fifth one on this list, so to build up some hype to come to that. But it's kind of... I always hate that this turns into kind of like a kind of a dunk on Scarlet Keys, but this isn't a dunk on Scarlet Keys. I enjoy the concealed mechanic, but it's important that if you bring a mechanic in, I think you want to explore it. And I think non-Euclidean and like scan from Dark Matter are keywords that are like mechanics that are explored. I think flood tokens we're getting there, but even then there wasn't too much of it. So I think that's just like one thing that's really nice about things like this. And it's a luxury that non-Euclidean was so simple because it means that it's even easier to explore and find design space in, right?
Exactly. And it doesn't take up a lot of room on the cards. That's also another positive.
Yes, yeah.
But just general advice for anybody making their own stuff or thinking about making their own stuff. Try to focus on simple things that interact with a lot of other things rather than one single thing that's like really super complicated.
Yes.
Because
Yep.
it's going to be harder for you if you do, and it's going to probably break in more scenarios where it's interacting with weird things.
Yes. And I mean, like, at this point now, especially, the more complicated it is, Arkham is even more complicated in the player cards. There's so many things you can do now that you won't even think of. And you're going to be like, how did I miss that? Well, because it was probably impossible to find until, like, you get it to 100 people and then, like, that person finds it.
Exactly. And we don't know what potential stuff they'll come out with in the future
Yep.
for just regular player cards that could break past scenarios, because they're not designing with those scenarios in mind. They're just designing with the official stuff in mind.
Yep. I mean, I think even with Arkham official design in and of itself, they don't really like they do design for like things that exist, but like they released Keimani, and Keimani is, for example, really good in the Forgotten Age and really bad in Innsmouth. And I think that is also just kind of like something you should just be aware of too, that some investigators, Luke Robinson is going to break your stuff. Like, that's the rite of passage for a custom content creator. Both you and Axolotl told me that, so, you know.
Oh, yeah, and I know Dr. Jack, Olivia Juliet, Og, they've all sworn by shaking their fist at Luke Robinson, curse you, Red Baron.
Yeah, it's what he does. All right, should we hop on to the next one?
Yes.
All right. We have the Two Noble scenario for Arkham Incidents. So before we get into this actual scenario, Arkham Incidents are 5 scenarios that you built inspired by an ally in Arkham, one for each class. We have Tetsuo Mori, William T. Mailson, Dario Alamine, Olive McBride, and Madame Lebranche. Those are the 5 scenarios.
Yep. So,
yeah, this one. Yeah, go for it.
So for the Arkham Incidents overall, it was sort of more based on the story than anything else, because, I mean, that's one of the biggest parts of the game is the story that they're telling, and the story that's unfolding as you play. But there's a lot of characters that are interesting without much to go on other than they go in your deck.
Mm-hmm.
So I expanded on a few of them that I thought had some cool stories behind them, and Tetsuo was one of the ones I picked. So it's almost like a murder mystery inside the police station.
So I'm going to jump in here because I want to talk about this from the player perspective, is not so much the designer perspective. This scenario is really cool because it's actually so ages ago when we first played Black Star's Rise, the penultimate scenario in Carcosa. There's a little bit of a mystery in it. But unfortunately, that mystery is told through game mechanic. So it's not exactly something that you can solve. And while this game, I think, like, having a mystery that you can solve by replayability makes it, like, pretty much impossible, it is something that I was like, I wish there was a way that we could solve this mystery that wasn't just get to this location, is it the right location? Fast forward into the future, years into the future, I'm an older man with less hair on my head, and I'm here playing Two Noble from Arkham Incidents, the first one in this, my blind play. And you slowly figure out evidence. The goal of the stereo is to find evidence, and then there are 5 suspects out in play. And you find an evidence, but the evidence doesn't actually say anything on it that's like game mechanic. It's just flavor. And you have this thing, you're like, this doesn't actually do anything. But then you read it, and you're like, we found a black hair. And we found this black hair. That was the evidence we discovered. And then we look through all the people, and you realize, hey, Frank Kagel, this guy is bald. It says both in his flavor text and also his picture. So this guy, black hair, maybe it's not him. And then you get another piece of evidence, and it cuts out another one of the bystanders. And it suddenly just is like an actual mystery that you can solve based on flavor text, which actually feels like you are a detective, which I think is, personally, if I can, say something so bold, I think this is the greatest success when it comes to that kind of thing in Arkham. It's like actually a huge accomplishment, I think, in terms of design. For that, it's kind of crazy what you were able to do with this one with such a simple thing.
Well, thank you. I know it's like functionally just the same as like finding things that say, okay, it's not this guy.
Yeah.
But just the fact that it's letting you interact with it more makes it your experience rather than just the game proceeding.
Yes. Yeah. And it's emergent storytelling, right? Yeah, because exactly that. Instead of getting this card that says it's not him, suddenly you're like, I'm piecing this together. And like, even if you play it multiple times, there's some that you're gonna have to read. You're like, black hair and Frank Kagel is a pretty easy thing to put together. But I do think you actually like. I think there were each thing was obvious, right? Like, there's no like gotchas in it. There's no like this could be two people. I think you did a really good job with that. But some of them you have to actually like kind of infer a little bit more, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, there's a few that aren't like completely straightforward, but because it fits them better than anyone else, you can make reasonable assumptions.
Yep. And then on top of this, the scenario itself actually has a lot of really good mechanics and encounter cards that go with it. I love like the criminal suite that you have in there. And the various ways you can interact with them. I just think this is I think it's the best of the two the Arkham Incidents.
I agree. It's the one I'm definitely happiest with.
Yeah, it's very, very tight. Albeit, I will say that's not to mean that the other Arkham Incidents are bad. They're very good. The Olive McBride one is probably my second favorite. But they're all very good. This one is just like it's really good.
Thank you.
All right. Shall we jump into number 4, which is, I will admit, it's unfortunately the one I have the least to talk about. So I'll leave this one mostly to you in the design process for it. But this is the game night scenario from Jumanji.
All right. So, like the movie, as you can see, the movie characters are right there. You are in the overgrown mansion playing through the Jumanji game, and every time somebody takes a turn, the encounter deck grows and new threats get added to it. And you've got to deal with those immediately when you add them to the deck and over the course of the rest of the scenario, because they just keep building and they keep cycling in the encounter deck, because when they're in there for good. And it's just the randomness of the Jumanji game that you're forced to deal with turn to turn, just like the characters in the movie.
So the reason why I don't have much to say is because unfortunately in my blind play of Jumanji, I brought in 2 jank decks. And this is probably, I think, your hardest custom stuff, I'd wager.
It's definitely up there. I did kind of raise the challenge just because of the dangers in the Jumanji deck.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, and I do remember this one because mechanically, like, it is really cool. I do like that, like, these are. It really feels like you're actually like in the house playing Jumanji, and like it has that kind of thing where like you even like have to like, if I remember correctly, like even have to like move the game board around like as you're going through the house.
Yeah, somebody's got the dice and somebody's got the board.
Yeah. And it's
So
like
I think for the most part the board I kind of just hand waved just because I didn't want people to juggle too many assets. But the dice bounces around, as do the different players, because there's Alan, there's Sarah, and then whoever was the lead investigator.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because like they're playing with you. Yeah, that's right. Which honestly I will say is super clever, like to translate the movie. I mean, like people have told you this, and I agree that your ability to translate something into Arkham is really good and really tight. And yeah, with them like also playing is just like really, really sick.
Yeah, it's something I really love about adaptations, and honestly something that annoys me about a lot of like official adaptations of things, that they don't seem to care about what makes the story what it is. They just care about like the superficial stuff that they think is marketable. But I'm making this stuff for free. I don't need to care
you need to worry about that. Yeah,
so I can just focus on the stuff that I really like and what makes me like it the most. So yeah, for the Jumanji stuff, I want people to have the Jumanji experience, not just point at all the big moments and go, "Oh, I remember that."
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe you and I can do a Jumanji run together, and I can actually do a proper run of it, because I do want to see it to its end. Because I do think game night was very memorable. Unfortunately, I also remember Leo Anderson and Finn Edwards just not doing great in that one.
That was also the worst luck I've ever seen with the doomed weakness. That was
oh yeah, that's right.
Astounding.
Yeah, because that was the one where it was only a 4 scenario. Because Jumanji's only 4 scenarios for people who don't know. And I was like, there's no way Doom's going to get me. And I had For Whom the Bell Tolls in my deck in scenario 3.
Yeah, it was almost top decked like every time.
Yep. And then his Elder Sign makes you reshuffle. Not a good combination there.
And that's supposed to last you for an 8 scenario campaign. Wow.
Yeah. All right. I mean, and then I just played with Father Mateo and only drew it once. So, peaks and valleys.
Well, Mateo needs all the help he can get.
Yeah. All right, let's go to this last one here, which I'm very excited to talk about. This is the moon tokens from Circus Ex Mortis. I will say, this is going to come on the channel. The first video is going to be at the end of the month on the 28th of October. So just over 2 weeks from this video coming to the channel. But Beard and I, actually, we played this. You and I played my blind run together for Circus Ex Mortis. And I'll just tell you, I really enjoyed it. And the moon tokens especially are super sick. So what are moon tokens?
So it's another symbol token that's native to the campaign. And it has a very simple effect. It's a 0. And when you draw it, you seal it on your investigator card. And then at the end of the round, you can choose to either keep it on your investigator card or take a damage or a horror to get it off and back into the bag. Mm-hmm. And there's reasons to keep it and reasons to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. And it kind of all blends together depending on the scenario and depending on the encounter cards.
Mm-hmm. I think this is another example, as I mentioned when we were talking about the non-Euclidean keyword from Cyclopean Foundations, of just a simple mechanic that you can do a lot with.
Yeah, and because it is one of the symbol tokens for the Ancient Needles replacement too, mm-hmm. It also can spiral even worse. That's one of the incentives to actually pick the Doom option every now and again. Yeah, no, it's a very elegant thing, and it feels really nice to play with. And I was very impressed by how the value of moon tokens change from scenario to scenario, because unlike, for example, non-Euclidean, or even going back to scan, these are like the things that we can just refer to as just strong keywords that exist in campaign. Your moon tokens are in every scenario, right? Like you could be lighter on non-Euclidean, you could be lighter on scan, but like moon tokens, they're like always there, and you probably you had a goal to try to make them relevant in some way in as many scenarios possible, if not all of them, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Because even if they're not being involved in the direct scenario mechanics, which they usually are, there's a lot of encounter stuff and some locations that play off of it.
Yeah.
Just something to always keep in mind.
Yeah, and you can see like we have the moon calf over here, which gets stronger. We have the new moon magician. If there's none out there, like he gains aloof and hunt. He loses aloof, gains hunter, and gets +2 fight. And then like the ominous moonlight, which can also force moon tokens on you. One thing I also find really cool is that like that warped stonework and also like official content and all that stuff, this is something that you can even game, right? We did. For example, we had Tommy Muldoon and Calvin Wright. Those are two people who play very well with moon tokens. Will York is another one. And I think stuff like that is a really a really cool aspect of a custom mechanic like this, because it gives kind of some, what am I trying to say? Like, it gives like excitement for a reason that you want to explore that mechanic as a player, as opposed to a designer. Like as a player, you're like, I want to see how, like bringing Patrice through Hemlock Vale as an example, right? You want to like see, or Keimani through Forgotten Age or Innsmouth, depending on if you want to kick ass or get challenged, right? And I think that's really, really cool.
And I particularly like that I telegraphed it at the start, because for some of those you mentioned, like Kimani and Patrice, you kind of have to like know the campaign you're getting into to know if you're going to be challenged or have an easier time. But the moon tokens are on page 1, so just looking at the mechanics, you could say, oh, I may need to bring a little extra soak for this, or I need to bring some healing, or maybe a character that interacts better with damage and horror.
Yeah. Or like it'd be cool to some sort of thing where you're just like, I'm the moon boy, and you just have every moon token on you, and like just make everything harder, but like you're trying to like outpace it. It's really, there's a lot of different directions you can go with it.
Yeah, and again, it's my love of simple mechanics that you get to interact with in a number of ways.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, sorry.
Oh, sorry. It's just a design philosophy thing, because the stuff that I'm making, I want anybody to be able to play it and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. So if I make something that's overly complex, even if I really like it and even if I understand it, doesn't mean people are gonna have a good time playing through, because there's a lot of mental overhead. And Arkham can already be pretty mentally taxing in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's a good philosophy to have. And then it also allows you to, make discoveries in other ways for like how you want things to challenge people. If the baseline is that you want it to be approachable, right? It allows you to modify things in other ways, depending on the flavor of the scenario, campaign, and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do think these are 5 great examples of designs you've done, and there's still a lot of great stuff too, because you've made a lot of cool investigator player cards. I just think that like especially scenario custom stuff is obviously like more popular with the community, but also I think it's the balance of it is easier to see, and like to see the uniqueness of it, I think is easier to find than player cards.
It is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think I mentioned this back when we were doing the run earlier today. Mm-hmm. I'm not as good with deck building in general. Mm-hmm. So custom investigators and custom player cards are a little harder for me already, because I just don't think about it in the same way a lot of pro deck builders do. Yeah. Because a lot of people can see a card and immediately think of like all the applications and all the possible ways they'd want to use it. Yeah. And for me, I can like think on it for 10 minutes and think, oh, this might be cool. And then someone will tell me, well, yeah, everyone does that. Yeah.
But I mean, on the flip side, you can pull out a scenario in like a day or two, right? Like you have that language code in your head to balance it out. So
that is true. I actually did a count of the number of scenarios I've officially released. Do you want to hazard a guess?
Okay, let me just take a shot on this. Like in campaigns, is there 8 scenarios?
Yes, campaigns are like 3, 4, 8, 9, whatever amount of scenarios. Right. So the total amount of scenarios that I have released to the public as of right now.
So you have Alice, Cyclopean, you have, I know you have Jumanji, but I'm doing the 8 ones first. You have Half-Life, you have Circus, you have Oz. So that's 40 right there with just those. 44, I'm going to say like 70.
You're close, it's 66.
Oh, it actually was pretty close. That is a lot of scenarios, though.
Yeah, I think I've been slowing down because I want to try and focus on my original stuff, even though I haven't been. But as of the moment when I decided to step back, I think I'd been averaging about 1 scenario a month since I started creating.
Yeah, and I mean, like you're actually at a pretty good pace with the official stuff too, because they probably have like 80, like in like the 90s, right? So like you're like, for one person, that's really impressive.
I mean, I do have a lot less restrictions than they do, and
you do, yes. But I mean, like, still, like it's like for like it's a huge contribution to like Arkham as a whole, and it's awesome.
True, it's for the love of the game, because this is like I'd never played a game like Arkham where the story is so baked into the gameplay.
Yes,
and if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have gone very hard into it, because like I'd played other Arkham Files games in the past and I was never really driven to make anything for them before. But just the unique structure of the game made me want to do so much with it.
Yeah, and you can see that in your scenarios too. Just like it's one of those things where like now, even though it's not actually like it's not actually this, but anytime I see like a story asset that's like a character in a custom or an official thing, it's like a trademark beard strategy. So like that's like a beard trademark, like a director's trademark, it's a designer's trademark, and that someone else is like doing it. I always just think of you first because of the boat driver and Cyclopean Foundations, and how you told me you like to paint a picture of the world that's existing, even if it's kind of like unrelated to the scenario.
Yeah, and I really like that about Tsukimon, where he's had history with the mythos before you met up.
Yep.
But only now that you're together can you really understand it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
I like character stuff a lot, but that's another tangent we don't have to get into right
now. But I do appreciate you sharing these with me. It was very fun to talk with you about them. I'm going to have a link to all of these in the video description, all of the relevant stuff. Other than that, if you want to see more with Beard, let me know. Again, in a few weeks, our Circus Ex Mortis run starts on the channel. You should watch it. It was a very good time. And other than that, Beard, thanks for joining me.
And thank you for having me.
And a huge thank you to all of our patrons and for everyone who is watching on YouTube. Let me know in the comments, what has been your favorite stuff of Beard's that you have played? I would love to hear it. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.